Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode now 9, where we're going to talk about Copilot as a system of record for AI integration. As we all know, that this is a topic that is coming up in every company and every executive conversation now. It's agents. Everybody wants them. Everyone feels like they should be doing agents, but the reality is most organizations are still struggling to get that agentic initiative off the ground. At the same time, we all know AI capability seems like every week there's a new model update, and more companies are adopting subscriptions into these AI copilots. So as well as third-party applications like ServiceNow, Salesforce are all integrating these things into their actual platforms. So today we're going to talk about a different way to think about how to enable agents inside of your organization. What if Copilot became the system of record for your AI integration? To talk about this is Ben Hungerford. Thanks for being here, Ben, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Andrew. First time, long time. Excited to join the conversation. Ben Hungerford. I am a senior M365 consultant on the Valorem Reply modern work team. So, helping our clients across the range of Microsoft modern work software, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, Viva, and then, of course, all things Copilot and Copilot agents. So
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on, Ben, as we had a nice adventure at Ignite doing a speech together. So I'm happy to be able to do it again on here on the podcast.
getting the team back together.
Getting
Yeah.
the team back together. So before we jump in, we like to introduce our topics here on the podcast with our Valorem Visions board, where we'll ask you to bring up a whiteboard. We'll give you a minute or so to really kind of outlay visually what we're going to be talking about today. So why don't you go ahead and bring up the whiteboard, and we'll get you the timer set. And when you're ready, have at it.
Okay, great. Yeah, testing whiteboard skills sounds good. So, as we were discussing, everyone is talking about agents. We're looking at agents in a lot of different places. When we're thinking about Copilot in this context, the data that we have from Copilot today is really all grounded in that M365 data estate, right? So, what do we have that is Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint? We get that to start. So if we're thinking about that and we're thinking about Copilot as being that layer that sits there and is our UI into AI for that M365 data estate, and then beyond that, maybe we're starting to build other agents. That we have some other agent ideas that might be kind of running within that Copilot universe, whether that is just our agent one, our agent two, our agent three, things that we're trying to get started with here from that perspective. Outside of this context, however, there's always other things that are happening beyond the M365 data estate. Whether that is like a ticketing system, IT knowledge base, whether that's potentially my spelling in real time. There we are. Our HRIS could be some other homegrown systems that have business data, mission critical data that lives outside of M365. Increasingly, we're seeing AI, we're seeing agentic solutions be provided by everyone. And so if we switch out of me drawing boxes and see if I can draw a human, right? A given teammate, we are investing heavily in a lot of organizations, and this is something that the modern work team is supporting heavily in training, knowledge, in changing ways of working to support the enterprise investment in Copilot. But at the same time, as we're doing that, we're seeing all of these other agents pop up across the enterprise associated with other systems. There can be confusion around where do we go. And then again, as we were talking about, there can be just a challenge of, well, as we're thinking about these agents, how do we define these? How do we think about them? What are actual good use cases? And of course, outside of this entire context as well, we could draw over here any number of other, maybe this is Claude, Maybe this is Grok. Maybe this is any other kinds of LLMs that our end users may also be interested, may also have curiosity in, maybe using outside of their daily work context. And so there's a lot of options out there. Now, how do we make Copilot the most effective solution for that? It gives us some great options, not only from an agent development standpoint, but also from a systems integration standpoint. When we start to think about, if we can begin to bring knowledge from our external data sources into that M365 data estate, we can enable better, stronger, more useful agents, facilitate our grooming of our use cases for agents, that definition process that can be so challenging for organizations right now.
Sure.
And we can also reinforce for our end users that single starting point for Copilot for where do we use AI and how
Yep.
is it surfaced everywhere that we're already working today.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So obviously, it's kind of interesting as I think about it, right? Is we're starting to trade one type of fatigue for another fatigue, right? Is now this AI and agent fatigue of how do we use it? Where do we use it? How do we actually use it effectively? I've had many conversations with people on the podcast and clients where, they're talking about we've got 1,000 agents and how do we govern those? And we've talked about those in other topics, but really that's kind of pointing to what you're saying is we can create these agents. That's great. But how do we actually use them effectively to accomplish what is actually needed? Right. And how do we guide people to be able to have the entrepreneurship and excitement to go build those things, but are effective?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's pressure in the market to enable agents. It's difficult for IT administrators to know what is our best practices for moving forward with agents. Do we
Yep.
embrace fully Copilot? Should we also be leveraging some of these other agents that are associated with these other products, these other data sources, other solutions that we have in the enterprise? How do we define what we're going to build ourselves in house, with Copilot Studio or other tools?
Sure.
Organizations are struggling to define where to start.
Yeah, that's always the blank canvas problem, right? So instead of chasing agents directly, it sounds like you're suggesting we focus on those integration paths first. Walk me through that.
Sure. So I think this is something that the Microsoft platform historically has always done quite well. When we look at historically SharePoint as a solution for surfacing data and experiences from across the enterprise, talk about Teams as a single pane of glass for mobile experience. And now, we chuckle a little bit when we say it because it comes up so often in conversation, but that UI for AI
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Copilot, the power of this is change is hard. We're investing a lot in our solutions of Copilot and in training everyone at the enterprise in what to expect when they're using AI, what the
Hmm.
best practices are, how to interact with Copilot everywhere that they encounter it. And so the more that we can, as IT professionals, plus up that experience, yes, and that experience to say, Copilot is the place where you will find all of these AI integrations, at least as a starting point, that can become very powerful in enabling Copilot as a platform, enabling our end users to do the work that they need to do, and in empowering us to build interesting, useful agents, mobilize those use cases.
But yeah, I think of it back in quite a few years ago when Teams was just coming out, right? And it was kind of this new area of Slack and Teams and these business. And, everybody initially thought of it just as a chat client, a social aspect to adding. But really, Copilot is almost the same as you mentioned that UI for AI is Teams was the central hub for all business operations, right? You can share documents, you can build documents now. It is the spawn point for where all work starts. And I think I've thought about Copilot in that same vein now. And you see it now when you bring up like your waffle. It goes directly to Copilot, right? And so there is a clear direction of this is the integration hub for where all things start. And I think also on your topic of, thinking about the integration first, I think Microsoft is also seeing this quite a bit, this trend of the blank canvas problem, where I know we've been in a program funded by Microsoft that we're going into companies and doing these workshops that basically are saying, hey, we're all going to use agents. We get that. That's the entry point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through all the things that your business process does that may be repeatable and automated, and think about how we automate those processes and start from there. So at least you have an idea, you have a spec, which is the new hot term in all of AI, right? Of where do we start and how do we start visualizing where we need to build, which will then kind of guide you into the tools that you're mentioning, right? Can I just do a simple agent in M365? Do I need to add some advanced capabilities using Copilot Studio, or even more so with Foundry, right? And really getting into
Absolutely.
custom models.
Yeah,
So
I think
go ahead.
as you said, coming at it from the workload perspective is a strong approach. I find in some cases that can get very blue sky very quickly as
Yeah.
well, right? Of sort of, okay, well, in order to do this, then this first agent that we're going to build, this agent has to have everything. This is
Yep.
going to be
Yep.
it. It's going to solve all of these business problems, and in order to do that, it needs to be integrated with 6 different backend systems that we don't currently have access to. We're going to have this rigid requirements definition process. They'll have 150 topics built into the agent and all of these other capabilities, and it becomes very difficult then for enterprises to see, well, now this is a huge project, and we don't feel like we can do anything else until we
Yeah.
get to this one magic bullet agent that we're charging towards. I think flipping that on its head a little bit and kind of saying, well, we know where our data resides. We know what data we have access to today in the M365 tenant. If we just take this and say, well, let's add IT knowledge base. What does IT knowledge base plus SharePoint plus Teams? What are our capabilities right there?
Yeah. What does it
Even going
enable?
more simply into something like like an LMS, right? Where
Yep.
maybe we're a little bit less concerned about access controls. Everyone can know everything that's in our learning system. As we're bringing that in, what does LMS plus Copilot plus Outlook look like? It just
Absolutely.
it tweaks the way that we're thinking about it in a way that is just growing our library of integrations that pushes us further and further towards the big agents, but
Yeah.
allows us to move quickly on things that can deliver real value for the organization in the near term.
Yeah. It's an interesting, I think there's a FOMO aspect to agents right now, right? Is everybody, exactly as you were kind of saying, is everybody thinks if they don't have this huge, massive agent just absolutely running their entire business, that they're not doing it right. But
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it's more of those micro efficiencies that will add up to that agent. And not only that, as you're kind of talking about here, is finding those key places or integration points that actually spawn the better agent idea. And it's really about starting with those integration points as you're talking about.
You're also building further and further towards that frontier firm aspiration of everyone is a maker
Yep.
in order for us to allow the citizen developer programs where everyone is a maker and have that enabled confidently from an IT standpoint. Building in those integrations gets us there because we know, as technologists, we know how to do data integration. We
Right.
know how to build hooks between these platforms. We know how to do it securely, and we want it to be something that we're managing rather than something that a citizen developer is back channeling something through some REST API that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that's where people get nervous too. So we're building a library of connectivity that then enables boots on the ground to start to come up with their own solutions that have, yeah, to your point, those micro efficiencies.
Yeah. So let's dive into having AI be the system of record, Copilot be the system of record. What does that actually mean? We're talking about the framework of all of this, and I think it's something that everybody knows, but can't really operationalize. So what does that actually look like?
So I think it means that this Copilot then becomes this central layer where all of your AI interactions are defined, governed, and integrated, or at least where they originate. There is an important concept in agents that are built in Copilot Studio of having a fallback. So
Sure.
if we are thinking, we want the best in class experience for our end users. We don't necessarily want to rule out using a ServiceNow agent, but we would like the front door for AI to be Copilot. There
Yep.
are still opportunities there to build that integration, start that conversation in a Copilot experience, a Copilot agent that is grounded in, say, ServiceNow information in this example, but have a fallback to then possibly pass back to someone in help desk or pass back to the ServiceNow agent if that's
Yep.
appropriate, if that's the decision. But it takes some of the guesswork for all of the teammates of, wait, do I need to go here if it's IT and I go to Copilot if it's my business docs? And then we've got some other stuff that's getting built around, Anthropic, and what do I do about that? Copilot can kind of become that front door.
Yeah, and I think it opens it up, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they are scattered and what do I use and what tool am I doing it right versus having, as you were talking about, having Copilot and Teams be that central. We've all settled on, if you're using Teams being that hub. How do I then integrate that in? But not being exclusive and trying to rewrite tools that ServiceNow is going to integrate with their AI, right? We keep talking about kind of that integration, but ServiceNow is going to create a better agent than you can do outside, right? They have all the access to all their internal data and knowledge sources and whatever. So how do we integrate with that,
Hmm.
but in that common platform, so you don't have to go, well, I need to go get these insights, and now I have to go to ServiceNow, and now I got to go to this other tool and this other tool, and now you've just got this fatigue that it's going outside of what the name Copilot is actually supposed to be, right? That central person technology that, hey, I'm just going to talk to you. You go figure out all the things and just give me what I need, right?
Exactly. The other thing that we do get, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit as we're thinking about it, but having that data integration beyond the user experience benefits and the human experience benefits, human efficiency benefits, it also, from an IT perspective, gives us an opportunity to scrub that data
Mm,
during the integration
yep,
rather than this can also be with a lot of organizations that I'm talking to. That's a big matter for concern, right? We know the number one thing that is going to improve an agent experience, improve an LLM experience, or degrade it is quality of the data
yep,
that it is grounded in, that it's reasoning over. So there's an opportunity there as well. If we don't have, it's going to be a big project to go back and audit all of this information in
yep,
this additional data source. We've got to go do all of this scrubbing before we can turn on an agent associate. Well, and within the context of that integration, there's all sorts of opportunities to just say, well, we've at least cleaned up 2026 and 2025. Let's integrate with that, and then we'll work our way
yep,
backwards. Or we're going to flag records that we're confident in, that we have audited.
yep,
Let's integrate with those, and handling it in that way because of the immense flexibility that we have in those Copilot connectors, in MCP servers, et
yep.
cetera. We can really customize the approach to that to ensure that we're also getting our best in class data to power those agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of on that term, right, that governance and security, which we've talked about in past episodes as well with the security folks, is keeping it inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, right? And you get to use all the products that you're already paying for. The second that you're using outside tools, you're dependent on another governance model, on another governance model. Uh, and quickly you start seeing, well, I can't access this, I can't do this, I can't do this,
Hmm.
which then kind of going back on what we talked about at Ignite with that adoption change management is people are really excited. You got to keep that momentum. If you don't, people are just going to get turned off and they're just going to keep doing what they've always done. So keeping those integration points, identifying those, and actually expanding Copilot through what we mentioned before, Studio, Foundry, whatever, you still get to use all of your Defender and Intra and governance aspects of the Microsoft platform, like you said, to either sanitize, monitor, flag, whatever you need to do. So now they can operate in that freedom of trust that something isn't going to get exposed. And now I would feel more free to go, okay, I'm going to go be that maker that you mentioned earlier, right?
Absolutely.
So that context was good. So how is Valorem Reply, how is your team helping customers navigate this in a real way?
So, in many cases, this starts with that agent conversation. As we mentioned, everyone is interested in doing agents. And when we begin to have those conversations, I think calling back, Andrew, to what you referenced earlier, that start to look at those agent use cases and very quickly list of integrations required starts to grow.
Yeah,
So a key
absolutely.
thing that we're working with customers on right now is how do we do that agent use case intake? How do we use a rubric to evaluate the agent use cases? Where will we get the best ROI from a given agent, which is then going to be based on what is our level of complexity for integration, who is the audience for this agent, what's the build time for this agent based on all of these requirements, and understanding that from the integration context really helps us to guide customers towards prioritizing that, to say, well, if we again we're building this list, we have an incredible inventory of ideas that are coming in from across the enterprise. If we work together now to build this one system integration,
Hmm.
that enables us to then start with these 12 agents plus all of the other agents that your teams haven't thought of yet, that they will once they start to see agents 1, 2, and 3 start to become available. In within my team, we are also, I'm not doing the development myself, thankfully, but we also do have a strong pro dev team to support those integrations directly. So
Hmm.
if customers don't have the resources in house to go leverage the agent toolkit to build Copilot connectors, in many cases, we're also stepping in directly to help understand what are our steps for that. Let's go out and build this. Let's make sure that we're getting those access controls correct across the data layer, etc.
Yeah, so it really sounds like if you're a company, you're kind of stuck, you want to do agents, what you guys are really helping is one going identifying those smaller wins, decomposing what all of us devs kind of do on a daily basis of the, hey, here's this huge platform you want to build. Now we build stories and features and really decompose that, but also giving people the confidence that this is a crawl, walk, run process, right? And if you start sharpening your agentic tools slowly, it's going to start snowballing into those bigger agents and those bigger ROIs as
Yeah,
you kind
let's
of get people excited.
exactly. Let's dream big, but let's start small and act now, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what does that process actually look like? Take me through a day in a life. If I'm a client, I'm giving you that, hey, we reached out, we're stuck, help us out. Like, what would an engagement look like, the structure? How do we go through all those higher level processes that you talked about?
So in many cases, we may have customers that are coming to us with some agent use case ideas. In many cases, though, it may be even one step removed from that. We've heard we want to do agents. Started investing in Copilot. We're doing the work to move forward on an adoption change management campaign to get our end users using Copilot, but we want agents. In those contexts, we are working with, let's connect with some of your Copilot champions. Let's connect with some of your business units. Let's do some art of the possible around what we can do with agents.
Yeah.
But then from beyond that, let's think about starting with that integration layer, right? So, how do we identify a system, identify a workload that already has some strong data hygiene, that already has clear ownership? Sometimes that comes out of those business conversations. Sometimes that's something that IT knows already. This is we've got a third party system, we've got an in house system. That we know and trust these business users. Let's get them in and start to talk through that. And then, how can we integrate M365 and integrate Copilot into that workflow? How can we start to bring that data into your data estate? And then as we're evaluating that data, let's think about the agents that can run on top of that. As we were talking about then as well, how does incorporating that data into our environment plus all of the data that's already resident, what does that get us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
Explaining those capabilities, really talking through that,
yeah, I think,
build from there.
yeah, I think something that I've also seen our group is I think that that cycle time to kind of first deployment, right? And saying, hey, you've got the ideas, let's go put this into action and actually take a company through what that looks like and just kind of relieve that pressure of like, oh, okay, it's not as intense and cumbersome as it appears at the beginning. And now
Hmm.
we've got some wins to build off of. And that's where I think that whole ACM component as well as that structured guidance. Sometimes you just need a handhold through the first couple, and then you really start feeling like, okay, this isn't a what I think the trend that everybody has thought is like anything technical is like you need these wizards of devs to go do these things, which that barrier through these tools and these kind of interfaces has abstracted so high
Oh,
that
absolutely.
people just need to be able to see someone move, click, connect, do the things to be like, oh, wait, there wasn't any code written in any of this. I can now, hey, personally, maybe it's not a company wide agent, right? It's like, oh, I can see this and I have to go give a weekly status. I now feel more confident to go in and create a M365 agent that looks at my calendar and all my Teams chats and distills that down and generates my weekly summary report. And as menial as of an agent that seems, for an individual, that could be huge, right? Is like, okay, well, every Friday I block off 2 hours of my day to come through all my conversations. Then I write it all out and do like these micro improvements that we're talking about is building that interface and building those use cases so that way you're gaining these efficiencies that on the outside don't look huge and impactful. And it's the same thing that we've been dealing with software for years, right? Everybody's trying to
Hmm.
build the one shot to maximize everything, where if they just take these little incremental chunks, they save time. The ideas that eventually come that actually make the application much better by discovery and usage now aided in the future big win, right? And I think feels like that's a lot of what you're talking about here is how do we enable, how do we show people this interface, how to use it, how to effectively use it, and then just get them started and kind of bring down that barrier of like, no, this is a code thing. This is one of them wizard dudes that come in and bring up a terminal and do magic stuff on my computer. That's all built in now. You can do all that without having to know it.
Exactly. The where there is code, if there is code, it's in that integration.
Yeah,
And so once we get that integration right, then we're empowering those no code, low code solutions.
sure.
As you say, if we save 50 people on a team, 15 minutes a week, that's real time savings.
Big savings
Absolutely.
and the utility of their day, right? They notice that. Now you got more happy workers, and this kind of goes into what we were having a conversation with another one of your teammates on Viva is like when you get you're going to start seeing that in the other portals when people are more excited about their job and what they're doing and seeing those
Hmm.
metrics and being able to tie those together as we all try and figure out like is this hype or is this actual real utility coming forward.
Yep. Flip side of that, I think, is if we save that 15 minutes a day, but I, as one of those 50 people, have to spend that 15 minutes trying to remember which agent I'm supposed to be talking to,
Yep.
or which experience I'm supposed to be hunting for to get that information,
Yep.
then that's where we get into trouble, right? And that's
Yeah.
where bringing it all together into M365 Copilot as that system of record, integrating all of these solutions can give us real power, along with that IT confidence that those data
Absolutely.
integrations are correct, that everything is being governed and monitored and is secure.
Yeah. We're creatures of habit. We humans want to go use a tool to go do a thing, creating that system of record, like you're saying, or that UI for AI. We're going to get big bonus points for this by the end of the episode. It is something that is going to add that comfort level to people because they don't have to go, where do I go for all of this, and have that kind of mental fatigue of what do I do? Where do I go? So awesome. Well, kind of stringing it all together and summarizing it up, right? Agents without integration stall. So coming in and really thinking about not first and foremost, we need agents, everybody has agents, but thinking about those key areas where you can bring them in 365, building out that log, which I think you and your team do a wonderful job engaging with clients and really talking them through and really distilling down that list. Once you've got that list, is that crawl, walk, run, and taking that methodical approach, and instead of that one shot approach to saying we're going to solve all our problems. It's okay to have these multiple agents. It's building that muscle to then find that bigger idea, and centralizing that not only enables that governance and security aspect on the back end, on the IT, on the wizard level, right? But also on the forefront is it's minimizing that training, it's minimizing understanding. Once you have that central integration point, people can go to this one area, they can operate, be safe, and create and be that maker that I think every organization is trying to really instill in people, is making that maker culture of go invent, go do these things, use these tools. We're paying for them. You might as well adopt them and use them effectively. Well, awesome, Ben. Thanks for breaking this down. Any wrap up ideas? Anything else that you want to tell the audience?
I think first, thanks. This has been a great conversation. This is something that I know a lot of organizations are
Absolutely.
struggling with, either from the how do we organize our thoughts on this? How do we think about integration? How do we groom our use cases for agents? How do we break this down? Or how do we even build these integrations? How do we get started? Something that we're working with a lot of organizations to support right now. So if there's questions, we're here to support.
Awesome. So just to piggyback on that, if you're navigating this AI integration and trying to move from experimentation to execution, you're experiencing that stall that we've kind of been talking about, leave comments on this video, reach out to us on socials, visit our site at valoremreply.com, where you can get in touch with us by clicking on the connect and putting in your specific use case and what you're struggling with. And one of us will connect with you and hopefully guide you through what Ben was talking about today and help you get unstuck and really accelerating. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ben, for hopping on here with me. I always love talking and presenting with you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yep. Take care.